My father is the supreme dragon king, my mother a noble silver dragon. I was reborn as a yellow hatchling, a rarity seen once a century. But my parents always wanted to kill me, simply because I came from a double yolk egg. Dragon custom dictates raising only one hatchling per nest. If two or more are born, they eat the weakest looking one. Though my dragon parents didn't choose to eat me, they still threw me into the most dangerous demonic beast dungeon to fend for myself. However, when I opened my eyes again, I realized I was still alive. But I had 3 broken ribs, and my internal organs were severely injured. Besides, I am currently very weak from hunger. If I don't eat something soon, a demonic beast won't even need to kill me. I'll die of hunger right here. I am a dragon king, and even if I'm a flawed product, I am not a product of death. I am a dragon king, and even if I'm a product of death, I refuse to die of hunger here. I am a dragon king, and even if I'm a product of death, I refuse to die of hunger here. I am a dragon king, and even if I'm a product of death, I refuse to die of hunger here. My sharp baby teeth, though tender, were fueled by the dragon power coursing through my veins. They still pierced with precision through the soft flesh of its joint. The beetle let out a deafening screech and began to shake its body frantically. But I didn't let go, not even for my life. At the same time, I dug my foreclaws deep into the beetle's abdomen. Its massive mandibles scraped across my back, and the scales that had barely healed were instantly shattered, dripping with blood. A sharp pain pierced through me, but the ferocity in my eyes only grew more intense. I remembered the Dragon Emperor's indifferent gaze. I remembered my brother's arrogant posture. I remembered my mother's face, she who never once looked at me directly. I cannot die. I have to live. I'm going to devour you completely. Then, I forcibly tore off a piece of flesh and swallowed it. A warm current instantly exploded from my stomach, flowing rapidly through my entire body. It was energy. I felt the power I had lost returning to me. The wound on my back began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The beetle's struggle also grew weaker and weaker. Finally, it convulsed a couple of times. The beetle twitched a few times and went completely still. I began to frantically devour the rest of it. But just as I was halfway through, the ground beneath me suddenly began to suffer a violent shaking. Snap! I whipped my head up. An intense sense of danger washed over me. Behind me, a gigantic eyeball was staring fixedly at me. As I made out its silhouette, I got goosebumps instantly. It was an adult earth drake, a dragon subspecies, one of the masters of the dungeon's middle levels. Although its lineage is much less noble than that of a true dragon, and its intelligence is relatively low. Its skin is thick and tough, its defense is amazing, and its strength is terrifyingly great. To my current self, it is undoubtedly a grim reaper I cannot defeat. It's over. I closed my eyes in despair, but after a moment, the death I expected didn't come. I opened one eye. Confused, I saw that the massive earth drake didn't open its mouth to bite me. Instead, it brought its nose close and sniffed me hard. Suddenly, the earth drake pulled its head back. From its throat came a series of low, strange sounds. Surprisingly, it didn't sound like a threat. On the contrary, it seemed to have a touch of doubt and curiosity. The next second, something happened that left me speechless. This massive earth drake stuck out its tongue. But it wasn't to catch me. It gently licked the insect blood staining my body until I was clean. After licking me, it seemed to confirm something. A glow appeared in its eyes that could only be described as maternal love. It slowly lay down and rested its massive head on the ground, right in front of me. A soft moan came from its mouth, a signal for me to curl up in its lap. It didn't take long for me to realize what was happening. Evidently, this earth drake had just given birth and was in a phase of heightened maternal instinct. And through my veins flows the lineage of the Dragon King. For a lower lineage earth drake, this superior aura of the same origin triggered an instinctive sense of affinity. She was treating me like her own son, while I hesitated to play along with this family drama. My stomach, very inconveniently, growled again. The earth drake seemed to understand that sound. She immediately appeared anxious. Her massive body moved clumsily, and she turned sideways, exposing her abdomen where she had several swollen nursing pouches. From them emanated a tempting scent of milk. A vague mental wave reached my mind directly. Eat. It wasn't words, but the soul communication typical of high-level creatures. I looked at the area where that milky liquid was flowing. I swallowed hard. It was earth drake milk, a vital essence containing the power of the earth. For my current self, it was a tonic more valuable than any heavenly treasure. I stopped hesitating and buried my head in the earth drake's soft abdomen. I began to suckle greedily. This energy was 100 times purer than the insect blood from before, and besides, it was incredibly smooth. I could clearly feel the damaged meridians inside my body repairing themselves at high speed. I don't know how much time passed, but I couldn't drink anymore. An intense sleepiness washed over me. It's my body's reaction to entering a state of deep repair. Half asleep, I felt the earth drake carefully pick me up in her snout and carry me into the deepest part of the cave. Soon, she gently placed me in a nest covered in dry grass, but as soon as I touched the ground, I felt several hostile glares from the corner. 3 little earth drakes. Even though they were just hatchlings, they were twice my size. The 3 earth drake pups stared at me with hostility. At me, this strange red creature. One of them, the bravest, approached and gave me a shove with its hard head. It was as if to say, "Get out, this is my territory." Seeing that, I bared my teeth and struck back immediately. The little dragon clearly didn't expect me to be so aggressive. He got so scared he tucked in his neck. At that moment, the mother dragon's massive head peered in and let out a low growl. It was as if she were scolding her naughty children. She used her snout to huddle the three of them and me together. Although the three little dragons didn't want to, under their mother's imposing gaze, they had no choice but to move reluctantly and curl up against her belly. As I settled in, I felt a sense of security I hadn't known in a long time. I closed my eyes. With a smile, I thought, since they've taken me in, from today on, this is my home. And anyone who dares touch them, I'll eat them. When I woke up, I saw the mother and the three hatchlings. They were already ready to head out. The mother dragon signaled for me to follow her. Today was exploration day. For the magical beasts living in the dungeons, the nest is safe. But staying there all the time means dying of hunger. Besides, the pups need to learn how to survive. Leaving through the hidden entrance of the cave, the view suddenly opened up. It was a vast plain of underground caverns. Countless stalactites hung from the ceiling. In the distance, massive shadows moved, and from time to time, bone-chilling roars echoed. I knew that with my current strength, if I strayed 500 meters from the mother dragon, I'd be an easy snack for anyone. She led us to a relatively open gravel area. A low-level magical beast lived here, known as the mole rat. They're agile, but their attack is weak, making them perfect for practice. The mother stopped and gently tapped the ground with her tail, giving the order. The three little earth drakes shot forward, full of excitement. Even though they were clumsy, their strength was their advantage. The oldest brother slammed headfirst into a rock, and a few mole rats hiding underneath scurried away in terror. The second and third brothers, for their part, pounced awkwardly. Though their aim was terrible, with their huge claws flailing everywhere, they managed to crush one unlucky rat. The scene was total chaos. More than a hunt, it looked like a demolition. I watched them with cold disdain at that kind of savage onslaught. It had no technique at all. I was watching a king mole rat, slightly larger and clearly more cunning. That thing didn't run blindly like the others. It huddled in a dead-end corner, staring fixedly at the little dragons making a mess, searching for an escape route. Just as the oldest brother turned around to chase another mole rat, the moment the drake left his back vulnerable, that king mole moved. It shot out close to the ground, its target being the bushes behind us. "Where do you think you're going?" My pupils suddenly contracted. In this instant, it was as if the world before my eyes had slowed down. It wasn't an illusion, but the talent of my Zulong lineage, the passive effect of the rudimentary form of the eyes of time. Though I can't control time at will yet, under intense concentration, my dynamic vision can capture everything. Steps at extremely high speeds. I could clearly see the trajectory of the contraction of the Mole King's muscles. I predicted where he would land. A second before the Mole King could reach the bushes, my body lunged with force and my baby teeth sank with precision into the Mole King's neck, right on the spine. And then, a lethal blow. The whole process lasted no more than 3 seconds. By the time the three little dragons moved in, the Mole King was finished. When the three little earth drakes, still digging everywhere, finally reacted, their eyes went wide. It was as if they were seeing their useless younger brother for the first time. Right then, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, a dense rustling sound rose from the cracks between the rocks. The mother earth drake, who until then was watching her children play affectionately, suddenly let out a roar. She leaped up, protecting the 4 of us cubs. Immediately after, countless black, segmented limbs emerged from the earth. They were corrosive black scorpions. They are a type of predator that lives in colonies, and although individually they are only level 1, they usually move in groups of hundreds or thousands. The venom from their tails can paralyze a wild bull in an instant. The most terrifying thing is that they are extremely vengeful and greedy. Once they smell blood, they don't stop until they kill or die. The Mole King's blood from a moment ago attracted this deadly swarm. A dense mass of black scorpions advanced like a tide, and the circle around us closed rapidly. The 3 little earth drakes had never seen anything like it. Terrified, they huddled trembling behind their mother, even though the mother earth drake was strong. After all, she was alone. Besides, these black scorpions are small, agile, and specifically attack the weakest defenses, like joints and the abdomen. In a blink, dozens of scorpions had already climbed onto the mother earth drake's back, stinging her frantically with their stingers. The mother earth drake roared in pain, rolling over and over, trying to crush the enemies on her back. But more scorpions took the opportunity to pounce on the cubs. Damn it. Seeing this scene, my gaze turned icy. With my size, I could squeeze into a crack and maybe escape with my life. But these big fools would die without a doubt. I glanced at my oldest brother, who was trembling while protecting me under his body. Then, I looked at the mother earth drake, covered in blood from the stings she was taking. I felt I was in a very dangerous place. I couldn't just look the other way. My mother helped protect me. Suddenly, the flame in my eyes flared up. I didn't run toward the swarm of scorpions. Instead, I looked toward a rock column that was about to fall not far away. The base of that column was already almost completely corroded, and it sat right over the entrance of the hole the swarm was coming from. "Big brother, hit that column." I let out a sharp screech. Although my older earth drake brother didn't understand complex language, He understood my gaze. He let out a roar, lowered his head, and with all his strength, launched a wild charge in the direction I indicated. A crash was heard as the fragile base of the stone column was shattered. The stalactite, weighing dozens of tons, collapsed with a roar. It fell precisely on top of the hole. It was the busiest exit point for the swarm, crushing hundreds of black scorpions at once. In an instant, they were turned into mush. The rest of the scorpion swarm was trapped. They were blocked by this sudden collapse that cut off their path. A massive gap opened in the circle. I roared again. The Mother Earth Drake seized the chance to shake the black scorpions off her back. Grabbing the four of us, she ran frantically back toward our territory. A month has passed since that encounter with the black scorpions. During this last month, I've been hunting like a madman in this territory. My body hasn't grown much, and I haven't been able to return home. I feel out of control, unlike my Earth Drake brothers. I'm still measuring just over a meter long, but my interior has undergone a radical change. My original dark red scales began to fall off. In their place, an armor of deep blackish red scales appeared. The hardness of these new scales is incredible. A common first-level magic beast can't even scratch my defense. Most importantly, my stomach is a bottomless pit. It doesn't matter how much I eat. As soon as I activate the breathing technique from my inherited memories, all that flesh and blood turns into pure energy in no time at all. Right now, I'm lying on a high rock outside the nest, watching. These last few days, the entire dungeon has been strangely silent. Normally, at this hour, the distant abyss would be loud. The jungle should be filled with the roars of magic beasts. But now, I can barely hear a sound, not a single living thing. I close my eyes and scan the surroundings. Suddenly, I realize that several low-level creatures at the edge of the territory are moving. They are fleeing in a pack toward the upper levels of the dungeon. Could this be the omen of a stampede? Stampedes are usually chaotic, but this migration is different. It looks more like an escape from some arriving sovereign. Behind me, I hear a low, restless growl. The Mother Earth Drake has come out without saying a word to me. She looks extremely anxious. Her massive claws dig into the ground nervously. As an earth magic beast, she is extremely sensitive to ground vibrations. She has sensed that something is invading this area. It is an immense and terrifying presence. Suddenly, the Mother Earth Drake roars toward the nest, giving an order. She tells the three little drakes, still deep in sleep, to wake up immediately and flee. But it's already too late. A dull thud sounds out. It rumbles as if it exploded right next to me. The entire cave shakes violently. And right after, a roar full of ferocity echoes from the front of our territory. I see a massive dark silhouette advancing slowly. It's a snow lion king. This lion is the sovereign of the dungeon's 4th level, a creature that reaches the peak of rank 3 in adulthood. But right now, this imposing sovereign looks pathetic and cornered. He is fleeing for his life. This rank 3 sovereign is being hunted by something, desperate and aimless. The crazed snow lion crashed right into the Earth Drake Mother's territory. He is gripped by extreme panic and pain. His eyes are completely bloodshot. It is the madness of someone who has lost their mind. When he saw the family of Earth Drakes in front of him, his first reaction wasn't to go around them. Instead, he felt a desire to massacre them just to vent his rage. The crazed snow lion roared and launched himself into the attack. The Mother Earth Drake let out a defiant roar. "Run, take your siblings." With her massive body, she lunged to intercept him. The two giant beasts collided brutally. Even though the crazed snow lion was gravely wounded, after all, he was still a sovereign carnivorous predator. He is one rank above the herbivorous Earth Drakes. His sharp claws instantly tore through the stone armor on my mother's shoulder, leaving 3 bloody gashes so deep the bone was visible. My mother roared in pain, but she clamped her jaws onto the lion's neck fur, using her weight to try and bring him down. The 3 little Earth Drakes were paralyzed with fear, huddling and trembling in a corner. I didn't run. I hid behind a massive rock, watching the battle coldly. If my mother lost, we'd all die. I had to help. My gaze scanned the lion's body. Where was his weak point? Finally, I found it. My eyes locked onto the lion's injured front paw. It was an old wound, and it was also his greatest vulnerability. As the lion pinned my mother down, his fangs about to sink into her throat, I lunged. "Die, you bastard." I bit down with precision right on the wound of the lion's broken paw. Sharp pain instantly shot through the lion's nerves, causing his movements to freeze up fatally. My mother seized this once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her tail, swinging like a construction sledgehammer, slammed with full force against the lion's head. Then, sharp rock spikes erupted from the ground, piercing his soft abdomen. The battle was over. The lion's massive body collapsed with a thunderous thud. He convulsed a few times and stopped moving. We had won. My mother was panting heavily, her entire body covered in wounds. But her gaze was full of relief for surviving and amazement toward me. She lowered her head and gently licked mine. I didn't return my mother's show of affection. Instead, I stared fixedly in the direction the lion had fled from. The lion was dead, but the true culprit who had forced him to flee was still there. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It wasn't a 4-legged beast like a dragon or a lion. It was an ape, one that walked upright. A giant ape cat, nearly 8 meters tall. His body is covered in dense black fur as hard as armor. He drags a massive white bone club in his hand. The hunter demon ape, the true sovereign of the dungeon's 5th level. a high-level demonic beast with intelligence comparable to a human child's. His imposing aura is close to the 5th rank. In my mind, there was only one word: run. This thing is completely out of our league. The Mother Earth Drake obviously realized it too. She spun around suddenly and used her head. She shoved her 3 hatchlings, who were paralyzed with fear, pushing them frantically toward a secret passage at the back of the cave. It was their only escape route. The Mother Earth Drake turned to look at me, signaling with her eyes for me to get in too. I gritted my teeth. Enduring the pain and weakness in my limbs, I followed my dragon sibling's steps, too slow. Facing his desperately fleeing prey, the demon ape didn't rush to chase them. He tilted his head, as if enjoying the struggle of these ants. Then, he raised the massive bone club and swung it against the cave ceiling, dozens of meters away. The entire rock ceiling collapsed instantly. Hundreds of tons of giant boulders fell with a thunderous roar, crushing the entrance of that path with incredible precision. The only exit had been blocked. The shockwave threw me to the ground, filling my mouth with dust. When I raised my head, my heart sank. The demon ape in front, a dead end behind. It was a death trap. The demon ape let out a low, satisfied laugh. He walked slowly toward the carcass of the raging snow lion. The lion's body was still radiating heat. The demon ape reached out with his enormous hand. He grabbed the lion and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing it in large bites. While he ate, his bloodthirsty eyes stared fixedly at us, huddled in the corner. This wait for death is more torturous than death itself. The 3 Earth Drake hatchlings had completely broken down. The 2nd and 3rd buried their heads in the dirt, not daring to come out. Only the eldest, though trembling from head to toe, barely managed to stay on his feet, protecting his 2 younger siblings. The Earth Drake mother's armor was already shattered from the battle against the lion. Her strength and magical power were completely exhausted. But even so, she stood up firmly, placing herself between the demon ape and her children. She knew she was going to die, but she wanted to make a bet, to gamble her own life in exchange for even one more second of survival for her offspring. Hiding in the shadow of a rock, my mind was racing at full speed. The demon ape finished eating. Then he raised his bone club and started walking toward our corner. In that moment, the Earth Drake mother moved. She let out the most furious roar of her entire life. Then, with her massive body, she charged violently at the demon ape. However, the ape only made a face of pure disdain. Just as they were about to collide, the demon ape stepped aside with the agility of a monkey. The bone club in his hand swung through the air and slammed into the Earth Drake mother's back with colossal force. Her spine snapped instantly. The Earth Drake mother was crushed against the ground like a pile of meat. She tried to get up. I could no longer feel the back of my body. I could only use my front claws to drag my broken frame across the floor. Even so, I kept trying to get in front of the children. She let out a heartbreaking wail and turned to look at me. There was no pain in her eyes, only a plea. Please, take them away. My eyes turned red instantly. You bastard, I screamed inside. But in that moment, the demon ape saw the mother drake as nothing but a stubborn nuisance. He raised his foot and crushed her head into the mud. Then, his gaze shifted. He looked past her toward the 3 small, plump drakes waiting behind. He grinned from ear to ear, revealing a row of yellowed teeth. He reached out to grab my eldest brother. Despite his fear, he didn't run away. Instead, he clumsily opened his mouth and bit the demon ape's finger. But it was obviously a useless effort. The demon ape simply gave him a flick of his finger. My big brother's head exploded like a watermelon. No scream, no struggle. That big guy who always bumped into me, but saved me the best meat, was now just a headless corpse. In that instant, the world seemed to stop. I stared in shock at the fallen body. My 2nd and 3rd brothers stood beside him, petrified with fear. Then, the demon ape's hand snatched up my 2nd brother. A short, heartbreaking scream rang out. My 2nd brother was crushed into a pulp. It was a massacre. He was enjoying the pleasure of crushing insects. I let out a sound. It was the roar of the dragon lineage. Youthful, but loaded with pure hatred. I lunged out from the shadows. If I can't escape, then I'll tear a piece of flesh right off of you. I lunged like a madman toward that invincible demon god. My speed was erratic, but my strength was at its peak. It was an instinct honed on the edge of life and death countless times. I didn't attack the ape's tough body or try for his throat. I knew I couldn't pierce them. My target was the demon ape's eyes. The demon ape clearly didn't expect this insignificant rainbow lizard to fight back so fast. By the time he reacted, I had already climbed up his arm and reached his shoulder. I opened my mouth and bit down with all my might into the ape's left eye. I didn't manage to bite the eyeball completely, but my sharp fangs tore through his eyelid. Blood gushed out instantly, covering his entire left eye. The intense pain made the demon ape let out a deafening roar. Enraged, he raised his massive hand as if he were about to swat a mosquito. He struck his own shoulder with brutal force. I felt the pressure coming and tried to dodge, but I had no footing. That giant hand hit me head on. It was like being run over by a high-speed train. I felt as if all my internal organs shifted in that single instant. Every bone in my body shattered. I went flying through the air. I slammed hard against the rock wall and bounced off. I rolled across the ground several times before stopping. I opened my mouth and spat. A huge mouthful of blood mixed with pieces of my organs came out. I couldn't get up anymore. My spine felt like it had shattered. I've lost all feeling in my back legs. My vision blurs. The world turns to blood. Red. That's the power gap. With just one slap. In the distance, the demon ape covers his bleeding eye. The ape is in no hurry to kill me. He wants to slowly torture this little thing that dared to hurt his eye. Carrying his bone club, he walks toward me, step by step. But just then, the earth dragon mother, who had already been crushed into the mud, with her spine broken, found strength from who knows where. She managed to move again. She lifted her head, her face covered in blood. She looked into the distance at the three blurry masses of flesh and blood, and a flash of deep desolation crossed her eyes. Then, that desolation transformed into a resolute will to die. She opened her mouth, and a warm, earth-colored light began to concentrate frantically inside. It was her magic core. She was burning her own core. The rocks around her began to tremble. Countless earth spikes sprouted like mushrooms after rain, erupting violently from beneath the ape's feet. Although they couldn't pierce the soles of his feet, they managed to stop his advance. The ape was furious. He turned around, raised his bone club, and began to beat the dragon mother without mercy. 1 blow, 2 blows, 3 blows. Each blow was accompanied by the sound of shattering bones and the dull thud of splashing flesh. The dragon mother didn't defend herself or scream in pain. She simply used her body to stubbornly block that corner, barring the ape's path toward me. Her life force was fading rapidly. Finally, the ape seemed to grow tired of the beating. Or maybe he felt that this pile of mangled meat was no longer a threat. He stopped, panting slightly, and wiped the blood from his eye. He stood still to recover his strength. That burst of rage, combined with his eye injury, meant he needed a brief breather. Taking advantage of that pause, the dragon mother turned her head with difficulty to look at me, lying paralyzed on the ground. Half of her head was already crushed inward. That familiar mental wave reached my mind again. The dragon mother asked, "Son, are they okay?" She was referring to the 3 little dragons who were already nothing but pulp. When she was crushed into the mud, she couldn't see what happened. Or maybe, she just didn't want to believe it. My heart tightened violently. In this cruel world, this was the final display of tenderness. I looked at the pieces of flesh scattered across the ground and, holding back the metallic taste in my throat, I replied with my mental power, They're fine. They just fainted. When you wake up, they will wake up too." It was the clumsiest lie I've ever told in my life. But the dragon mother chose to believe it. That's good, she thought. Her breath was growing weaker and weaker. That mental wave began to become ethereal and distant. "Son, I know you don't belong in this place. You are different from us. But I considered you my own son. Don't cry. In the dungeon, crying only attracts death." The dragon mother's voice suddenly became serious. It was the last flash of lucidity before the end. "Listen, son, I can't go on anymore. My body contains the power of the earth. Eat me." I froze. I thought I misheard. "What? Eat me?" That mental wave suddenly became incredibly intense, with a severity that allowed no argument. "This is your last sustenance. Don't waste a single crumb. If you don't eat it, that ape will eat you. Instead of letting him get his way, it's better that you grow stronger yourself. With my blood and my flesh, survive and take care of your brothers." That voice stopped abruptly as she spoke those final words. The light in the eye of my earth dragon mother was completely extinguished. A deathly silence once again enveloped the cave. I stared fixedly at the corpse. Eat my mother? Even if she was adoptive. Even if we were different species. But this month, day and night. Every sip of her warm milk. Her silhouette protecting me time and time again. She was my only home in this frozen world. And now, I had to eat my family. Suddenly, I burst out laughing. Is this the curse of the dragon clan? Is this the law of the dungeons? Eat or die? In the distance, the demonic ape had already caught its breath. He shook his arms, which looked like clubs, and turned around with a mocking smile, ready to harvest this last little thing. I stopped laughing. I raised my head and looked at the demonic ape. In my eyes, there was no longer any emotion. "Mother, you were right. Wasting food is a disgrace." Enduring the intense pain, I crawled little by little toward my mother's body. I opened my snout and showed my fangs stained with the demonic ape's blood. "Since this cursed world won't let us live, then I will eat the sadness, I will eat the pity, I will eat the weakness. And afterward, I will chew you up, you bastard monkey, bones and all, and I will swallow you." I took a bite of my dragon mother's mangled body. As soon as the flesh and blood entered my mouth, an immense energy, like nothing I had ever felt before, accompanied by an intense earthen aura, exploded inside of me. The evolution had begun. Meanwhile, in the distance, the ape hunter was in no hurry to interrupt the show. To his twisted mind, seeing prey kill each other and practice cannibalism was a supreme pleasure. With great interest, he even dug up the remains of a small earth dragon from the ground and stuffed them into his mouth like a snack, making a loud munching sound. He watched me with eyes thirsty for despair. He looked at me with a bloodshot eye and said, "Tastes good. You eat more, get fat, and then I'll eat you." That scene caused the flame in my eyes to suddenly turn into dark, black ink. Overflowing hatred mixed with the powerful energy exploding in my stomach, shattering my sanity in an instant. It was so hot. The earth dragon is an elemental beast of the earth. Its flesh and blood contain the dense essence of the land. And I, a Sulong, belong to fire and time. When earth met fire, there was no rejection. On the contrary, it was like placing a thick layer of rock over a flame, like a volcano on the verge of erupting. The more pressure there was, the more violent the eruption became. Suddenly, I stopped eating and let out a soul-shattering scream. I felt every blood vessel in my body swelling and tearing apart. Immediately after, the dark red scales covering my entire body began to transform into a product of the fusion between earth power and Sulong fire, the lava bone armor. My size also began to increase at a speed visible to the naked eye. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. In that moment, I ceased to be a true dragon. I was a cunning monster crawling out of hell, born for vengeance. In the distance, the demon ape hunter watching the show finally noticed that something was wrong. The mocking light vanished from his single eye. In its place, a trace of astonishment appeared. As a demonic beast of high intelligence, he could clearly feel how my presence, once as weak as an insect's, was now frantically rising. Level 1, Level 2, the peak of Level 2. I was even brushing against the threshold of the 3rd level. Furthermore, mixed into that aura was an imposing presence that made him tremble to the very depths of his soul. It was the lineage pressure of a superior predator, weak but real. His animal instinct told him he had to kill this thing immediately. Right then, the demon ape grabbed his massive white bone club, no longer with his former indifference, but unleashing all his speed. His enormous body kicked up a violent gust of wind, covering more than 10 meters in a single stride. In the blink of an eye, he lunged right in front of me. The demon ape roared, "Die!" He raised the club he was holding high, and with colossal strength, he brought it down, viciously targeting my head in the middle of its transformation. That blow was enough to pulverize solid rock, enough to have snapped the spine of the Mother Earth Dragon. However, just as the club was only a step away, my tightly closed eyes, weeping tears of blood, snapped open. Get lost. I didn't move. The club crashed down with force, but the image of my brains, being scattered as he expected, never appeared. Instead, there was the thunderous sound of clashing metal. The impact vibrated through the demon ape's hand, nearly making him drop his weapon. The bone spikes that had just grown from my back, as if they had a life of their own, snapped together in an instant, pulsing with the boiling energy of magma, and together they formed a semicircular lava shield. It was the Earth Dragon's innate ability, Earthen Guard. But after the modification of the Zulong lineage, it was no longer a simple defense. It was now a counterattack armor burning with extreme temperatures. The massive white bone club in the demon ape's hands, after all, was made of bone. Upon crashing against the lava shield at several thousand degrees, the contact surface charred instantly, releasing a thick, pungent white smoke. The demon ape screamed from the pain and the force of the impact. He stumbled back 2 steps, staring at his weapon in disbelief. The smoke and dust cleared. Slowly, I stood up. By then, my body already stood 3.5 meters tall, completely covered in heavy armor made of black and red scales. Standing there, next to the corpse of the Mother Earth Dragon, I lowered my head to look at my new claws, overflowing with power. That feeling of weakness was gone. In its place, I felt an overwhelming power, as if I could tear through steel. But I didn't smile. I turned my head to look at the remains of the Mother Earth Dragon, and then I looked into the distance at the 3 piles of flesh on the ground, where you could no longer tell who was who. Mom, big brother, second brother, third brother. Watch closely. Watch how I turn this ape into mincemeat. I slowly raised my head. My golden eyes, burning with flames, locked onto the demon ape. The corners of my lips pulled back, revealing a mouth full of interlocking giant fangs and teeth. A dragon's roar. It erupted. In the next second, the sound of a dragon filled the air. A deep crater exploded where I stood, and my figure vanished. Too fast, compared to my previous speed. My speed after evolving had increased at least 3-fold. The demon ape only saw a blur before his eyes, when a scorching, foul-smelling blast hit him in the face. Instinctively, he raised his club to block. But this time, that hard white bone club, beneath my sharp claws, was like a brittle cracker. It was shattered directly into 3 pieces. My claws, without losing momentum, slammed brutally into the demon ape's chest. That black iron skin he was so proud of was like an old rag against my new claws. 5 wounds so deep they exposed the bone opened up instantly. Before the blood could even spurt out, the heat from my claws evaporated it. The demon ape went wild with pain. He never imagined the roles of predator and prey would reverse so quickly. Furious, he threw the broken bone aside. Swinging his 2 giant fists, he rained blows down on me. Bring it on. I didn't dodge or move away. Now, with the Earth Dragon's defense and the power of the Dragon King, I'm going to crush this ape's pride head on. The demon ape's heavy fists slammed into my body, shattering some of my scales. Even though the impact made me spit blood, I didn't care in the slightest. Like a rabid dog, I clung to the demon ape with all my strength. If you hit me once, I'll tear off a piece of your flesh. This was the most primitive and bloody struggle imaginable. Soon, the battlefield had turned into a literal slaughterhouse. The demon ape, panting, took a few steps back. His gaze had changed, from his initial bloodlust to fury, and now, he felt fear. One of the demon ape's ears had been torn off, and his chest was a mangled mass of flesh and blood. I even gave his already injured left leg my special attention. I bit it until only a scrap of skin held it together, but I was in worse shape. One of my dragon horns was snapped in half, and my left front leg was twisted at a grotesque angle. The newly grown scales on my abdomen had been shattered by a punch from the demon ape, but the fire in my golden pupils burned stronger and stronger. I felt no pain. The physical agony had been numbed by the ecstasy of revenge. With every wound I inflicted on the demon ape, I felt that the spirit of my mother, the earth dragon in the heavens, was finding a bit of comfort. The demon ape cowered. Even though he was a 4th-level sovereign, he loved his life. Faced with this suicidal fighting style, his intelligence became a hindrance. He didn't want to die alongside a madman. Suddenly, he grabbed a handful of rocks from the ground and threw them at me with all his might to block my vision. Then, he turned and ran desperately toward the dark corridor. I let out a cold laugh. Trying to leave? Did you even ask my mother for permission? Just as the demon ape turned his back, I did something completely insane. I didn't run after the demon ape's back. Instead, I violently contracted every muscle in my body, gathering all the remaining essential dragon blood within me into my throat, and I spat out a flare of red and golden fire. This was a skill impossible to master at my current level, the dragon's breath. Even though it was only a primal reverse flame, far from reaching the perfection of the sky-incinerating sea of candles, it was the most terrifying nemesis for the creatures living in this dark, damp dungeon. The flame didn't strike the demon ape directly, but instead ignited his thick fur, which was covered in grease and blood. The flames rose instantly, and the demon ape turned into a living torch. The unbearable pain of burning skin made him lose his mind completely. He screamed in agony while rolling frantically on the ground, trying to douse the fire. But these flames, imbued with the breath of the torch dragon, were like maggots in his bones, impossible to extinguish. Now, I watched the burning ape rolling on the floor, and a freezing glint flashed in my eyes. I lunged at him, but I didn't target his vitals. I threw myself at his body. I aimed for those enormous jaws he kept wide open from screaming. That same mouth devoured my brothers a moment ago and mocked my mother. Roaring, I jumped directly onto the ape's chest. Open up. With both of my front claws, I gripped his upper and lower jaws with all my strength. Using explosive power, I forced his mouth open to the limit. The demon ape looked at me, eyes wide with panic. So close now. He tried to bite my hand off, but I didn't give him the chance. My tail, with its bone spike like a meteorite flail, rose sharply. I took aim. I drove it viciously deep into the back of his throat. My thick tail pierced straight through his larynx. The demon ape's body went rigid. He convulsed a few times and then collapsed. I let the flames on his body burn in silence. I had won, but I didn't celebrate. I turned around, dragging my broken body. I walked step by step to the corpse of my mother, the earth dragon. I knelt before her. I lowered my head and said, "Mom, I've avenged them. The ape is dead." I remained kneeling there for a long time, until the fire from the ape's corpse gradually died out, and faint whispers could be heard again from the surrounding darkness. Those greedy creatures, the scavengers, had smelled the blood and were approaching cautiously. I snapped my head up. The tenderness in my eyes vanished instantly, replaced by a cold glint, even crueler than before. I let out a growl. I didn't even have to move. That aura, mixing my dragon power and killing instinct, was enough to make every creature within 100 meters flee in absolute terror. I stood up. I knew I couldn't stay here. This cave was destroyed, and the smell of blood would attract even more terrifying beings. Perhaps monsters of the 5th level, or even the 6th. I am still not strong enough. I need to eat. I need to evolve. I looked at the remains of my mother, the earth dragon. I couldn't leave her to those scavengers. I took a deep breath and made my final decision. I opened my mouth and continued the unfinished ritual. This time, I didn't cry or hesitate, because I knew this wasn't just food. It was my mother's way of continuing to accompany me on my journey. When I swallowed the last bone, I felt my body burn once again. The wounds on my back healed rapidly. My lava bone armor grew thicker and deeper in color. Then, I headed to the temple. In that temple, there was a great feast of meat. I leaned over my enemy's body and began to devour him with large bites. While I ate, I looked toward the cave, toward the dim, dark entrance of the abyss above the hole. That place led to the upper levels of the dungeon. It also led to the legendary surface, to that golden and shimmering dragon palace. In my mind, I repeated that name, Dragon Emperor of the dungeon. Now I was fully evolved. I was the weakest creature in this place, but I had survived the slaughter. When the time came, I left the place where I was almost murdered. I had become a master strategist of my own survival. If I don't find a way to cool down externally, I suspect I'll end up cooking myself alive before I grow any stronger. I need water. I ran like a madman toward the most humid air in the dungeon. After running nonstop for half an hour, the smell of sulfur in the air finally began to fade. In its place, a bone-chilling cold appeared. In front of me was a massive underground lake, a frozen pond, the dead waters. This is the boundary between the 4th and 5th levels of the dungeon. It is also a forbidden and extremely dangerous territory. The water temperature here stays below 0 degrees all year round, yet it never freezes. Countless sinister, poisonous, cold-blooded creatures live in these waters. But for me, right now, this is paradise. Without a second thought, I dove headfirst into the freezing depths. The water within a radius of dozens of meters boiled instantly. I let out a roar of pure relief under the water. Finally, the turmoil inside my body calmed down. I began to absorb Those two massive energies in an orderly way. The deeper I dove, the lower the temperature dropped, and the greater the pressure became. I felt my bones becoming denser under the crushing water pressure. But of course, there are no free rides in the dungeon. Just as I closed my eyes, enjoying this rare moment of cooling deep within the lake, points of spectral blue light ignited in the silence. They were eyes. Glacial bone serpents, aquatic demonic beasts at the peak of the three realms. Their bodies are composed entirely of transparent cartilage, with only their spines made of hard, white bone. They are experts at firing poisonous ice thorns underwater, the absolute masters of this aquatic domain. They detected the heat source. Soon, a silent vibration transmitted through the water. Glacial bone serpents over 10 meters long surrounded me stealthily from every direction. They were clever. Instead of attacking directly, they opened their maws and spat a stream of venom. These toxins spread rapidly through the water. In an instant, they dyed the area around me, turning it into a lethal and poisonous zone. I was trapped in a cloud of death. I snapped my eyes open, interrupting my bath. Do they have a death wish? I didn't dodge the venom. I looked at my black and red scales. Suddenly, I opened them, and the magma lines underneath lit up with a blinding glow. Innate skill, boiling body temperature. The water temperature, within a 10-meter radius, went from 0 to several hundred degrees in a single second. The lethal venom was useless. It didn't even have a chance to work. Before it could even touch my skin, it was decomposed directly by the high temperature. It evaporated, turning into harmless residue. And those 7 bone serpents from the cold pond, who tried to ambush me, met with an instant catastrophe. They weren't ready for this. For creatures accustomed to a freezing environment, this sudden heat was, quite simply, hell. Their piercing screams turned into a series of murky bubbles that dissolved in the water. Their cartilaginous skin began to rot rapidly under the extreme heat. They were being cooked alive. I'm not as agile in water as on land, but I have my tail. That sturdy tail, fused with earth dragon power, lashed out with fury, letting me trail a red wake through the water. I bit a serpent's vital point, and then I injected it with a scorching dragon's breath. In an instant, the serpent's corpse became a roasted snake. The 6 remaining bone serpents, they went mad with terror. They had never seen a monster capable of spitting fire underwater. They tried to escape, but how could I let these frozen snacks go when they were served on a silver platter? I needed a large amount of water magic cores to neutralize the fire inside me. The massacre broke out in the depths. It was a completely one-sided slaughter. 5 minutes later, the mist over the lake began to slowly dissipate. I emerged from the water with the corpse of the last bone serpent in my mouth. I swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites, as if I were eating a spicy snack. At that moment, my appearance had changed subtly again, tempered by the extreme cold and heat. My scales were no longer that rough, blackish-red color. They had become smoother and more compact, taking on an elegant dark obsidian texture. Only when I tensed my muscles was a crimson magma glow created. The crimson magma cold flowed between the cracks of my scales. Most importantly, faint pale blue lines appeared vaguely between the spines on my back. It was the ability to breathe underwater and regulate my temperature, obtained after devouring so many bone serpents from the cold pond. From now on, neither water nor fire could harm me. I let out a satisfied burp. Once I digest all this energy, I might even reach the threshold of the 5th level. But I didn't feel calm at all, because the very instant I stepped onto the shore, my sharp perception caught a strangely discordant aura. It wasn't the stench of a magical beast. It was a smell that mixed grease, metal, sweat, and some kind of cheap perfume. Having been human before, I knew that smell all too well. It's the smell of humans. I lowered my head to look at the mud on the shore. Among the mess of magical beast tracks, the scents of magic were clearly visible, but I couldn't see anything. That was the moment my gaze turned icy. This is the deep zone of the dungeon. An ordinary human could never make it this far. Those who appeared must be an elite squad, fully armed. What are they doing here? I remembered the half-eaten corpse of the demon ape I abandoned a few kilometers back. This is a problem. I don't fear magical beasts. They are direct. Whoever has the biggest fist is right. But I fear humans. Their cunning traps, their magic scrolls, and the endless influences backing them are the most terrifying things in this world. I raised my head and looked at the tracks. They stretched toward the dragon's lair. The same place I just came from. Since they came, they won't be leaving. In this dungeon, there can only be one hunter. Meanwhile, elsewhere, an adventurer named Jack held a magical light rod, staring at the scene before him, his face pale as wax. He was a veteran silver-rank thief who had entered countless dungeons. He had seen plenty of disgusting sights, but what lay in front of him made his stomach churn. In a clearing before them lay a massive skeleton, the remains of a demon-hunting ape. But this skeleton was too clean, not a single trace of flesh remained. Jack swallowed hard and said with a trembling voice, "Captain, based on the scene, this 4th-level ape was brutally slaughtered. It looks like the culprit ate it all, not even leaving the bones." Behind Jack stood a tall man in shining crystal armor. It was the squad captain, Raymond, a gold-rank berserker. Raymond frowned and touched the charred marks on the ground. There were also traces of high-temperature burns. Could it be a 5th-level lava behemoth? Doesn't look like it. A mage wrapped in black robes approached, holding a water sphere. It was a crystal ball. At that moment, the crystal ball glowed with a blinding red light. The fire element residue here is extremely violent, and it emits a very ancient, noble pressure. The mage looked up, a glint of greed shining in his eyes. Captain, my dragon-seeking compass is vibrating. There is a dragon nearby. At the mention of that word, the breathing of all 5 people present quickened. In this world, what does a dragon represent? It means infinite wealth. Their scales can forge the finest shields. Dragon blood can trigger a total physical transformation, and their essence is a priceless treasure. Even a lesser dragon would be enough to set them up for life. At that moment, Raymond spoke in a deep voice. If it's a 5th-level adult dragon, we have to flee immediately. But judging by the scene, although the killer was cruel, its size isn't very large. The tracks are only about 3 meters long. The mage's voice grew sharp. It's a dragon hatchling that fled its nest or is wounded, and it's a high-ranking fire dragon species. We're going to be rich. Greed crushed fear in an instant. Raymond unsheathed the great sword from his back. Jack, follow the tracks. It just ate, so it surely hasn't gone far. Prepare the dragon net and the tranquilizing poison. Remember, try to capture it alive. Alive, it's worth 10 times more than dead. Jack nodded enthusiastically, crouched down, and began examining the tracks with great care. However, none of them noticed that 50 meters above their heads, on a rock in the shadows of the wall, I was watching them. I stayed perfectly still. The color of the light and my body blended seamlessly into the dark background. The corner of my mouth curled into a cruel smile. So, they want to play hunter, do they? Fine, I'll show them who the real hunter is and who the prey is. I didn't pounce immediately. On the other side, there is 1 gold-level fighter, equivalent to an early rank 4, and 2 silver levels, which are like an early rank 3. Plus, they have a mage and a cleric. A frontal attack, even if I won, would leave me wounded. So I opened my mouth slightly and exhaled. A colorless and odorless mist. It's a new ability I gained after devouring all those bone serpents in the frozen pond, the frost poison mist. This mist isn't immediately lethal, but it will slow them down until they are ripe for the picking. It doesn't kill immediately, but it paralyzes the nerves and makes their reactions much slower. The mist descended slowly down the rock wall, enveloping the area below in complete silence. Why is there suddenly mist? Asked the archer, who, with his sharp perception, noticed his vision was becoming blurry. He wrinkled his nose and sniffed. It doesn't smell like anything. Then Raymond exclaimed in a low voice, it must be a natural phenomenon of the dungeon. Don't get distracted, stay alert. And just at that moment, a drop of thick, sticky liquid dripped onto the neck of the cleric who was bringing up the rear. Instinctively, the cleric reached up to touch it. He raised his head, horrified, and what he saw was a face hanging upside down right above him. The next second, a thick, strong tail coiled instantly around the cleric's neck, giving him no time even to scream. The man was jerked sharply into the air, disappearing in an instant into the darkness covered by the dense mist. Who's there? Shouted Jack, who was in front, hearing the noise. He turned sharply, but there was nothing behind him. Where's the cleric? Fear spread through the group like a plague. Defensive formation. Raymond roared as the glow of his combat aura erupted, trying to dissipate the mist. But it only grew thicker, and inside it, a faint sound of gruesome chewing could be heard. It was the crunch of bones breaking. Damn it, come out! Shouted the mage, waving his staff wildly, throwing fireballs blindly in all directions. The fireballs exploded against the rocks, but they didn't hit even a shadow. Suddenly, the archer on the left let out a blood-curdling scream. Everyone turned to look. Terrified, they watched as a massive, bloody hole appeared out of nowhere in the archer's chest. And he couldn't even see where his enemy was. It's invisible. It can turn invisible, said the mage. The mage was on the verge of a collapse. This is no dragon hatchling. It's a demon. Back to back. Don't separate. Cold sweat ran down Raymond's back. He realized he had made a fatal mistake. This wasn't hunting a dragon hatchling. This was stepping into hell itself. Amidst the mist, my silhouette appeared and disappeared. I devoured the hearts of the cleric and the archer, feeling the meager magic power grow inside me. Although human flesh doesn't have as much energy as that of magic beasts, the souls of that mage and the warrior seem very delicious, especially the one belonging to the mage with the crystal orb. I moved silently until I was behind him. By then, the mage Ellen's voice had already become high-pitched and distorted. Damn it, where is it? The crystal orb in her hand was so red it seemed to drip blood, but that only indicated the monster was near, even if she was unable to pinpoint its location. Shut up and get close to me, ordered Captain Raymond. He still maintained the calm of a gold-rank warrior, despite the veins bulging on the back of the hand gripping his sword. He stood with his back against a giant rock to minimize his exposed surface area. The combat aura surrounding him contracted and expanded as if it were breathing. He did this to conserve energy and react to a deadly blow that could arrive at any moment. The thief, Jack, crouched in the shadows at Raymond's feet, like a frightened rat, tightly clutching 2 daggers coated in lethal poison. Captain, the archer, and the priest, they didn't make a single sound, Jack said, trembling. Not even a 5th-rank magic beast could kill someone without making the slightest noise. That thing is playing with us. Raymond snorted. Ellen, use that and clear this damn mist. If we use that here, we'll attract others. If we don't use it, we die right here. Ellen grit her teeth. She raised her staff and began reciting a dark incantation. The gem at the tip of her staff suddenly glowed with intense power. Third-rank light magic, sacred, illumination flare. A sphere of light, like a small sun, rose to the cave's ceiling and suddenly exploded. The intense light tore through the darkness instantly and pierced the mist. Within 500 meters, every corner was illuminated down to the smallest detail. Jack let out a muffled gasp. I found it. I found it. Less than 30 meters away from them. On a stalactite, I was hanging like a bat. Right there. Attack! Raymond roared. Ellen, almost by instinct, launched an explosive fireball. She already had prepared. At the same time, Jack threw the knives in his hand, aiming directly at my eyes. The fireball exploded against the stalactite, sending rock fragments flying. But my shadow was no longer there. Above them, Raymond's combat intuition saved his life. He abruptly raised his massive sword to block. The shrill sound of clashing metal rang out. Taking advantage of the shockwave from the explosion, I appeared over Raymond's head as if I had teleported. My claw, with its metallic glint, slammed with ferocity into the blade of the great sword. The massive force made Raymond's knees buckle. He was horrified. Is this really a hatchling? This dragon's power is comparable to an adult earth bear. When the first strike missed, I didn't persist. With a whip of my agile tail in the air, I used the momentum to launch myself backward. My target was the most vulnerable one, the mage. Stop him, Raymond roared, trying to chase me. But the recoil from his last attack made him half a second too slow. The thief, Jack, grit his teeth and moved. Jack lunged forward, trying to block my path with his dagger. Get lost. I was in midair with no point of support, yet I made a move that defied the laws of physics. The bone spikes on my back expelled a jet of high-temperature air like a thruster, forcing my trajectory to change. I went straight into Jack. He barely had time to place the dagger in front of his chest. Even forged in adamant and steel, it failed. Against my lava bone armor, the dagger was as fragile as glass. I shattered it, slamming my shoulder brutally into Jack's chest. No elegant techniques, just pure speed and hardness. Jack's chest collapsed instantly, and his body went flying, crashing against the rock wall. When he slid down, he was a shapeless mass. Instant death. 3 down. Now only Raymond and Alan remained. Alan's spirit broke completely. He shattered an amulet hanging from his neck. It was his lifeline, an instant cast repulsion fire ring. A shockwave of crimson flames expanded in all directions from his body. He was trying to push me away. I laughed. Using fire against a dragon? Really? I opened my mouth and inhaled sharply toward that ring of fire. I devoured it. That violent repulsion fire ring was sucked directly into my mouth. A second later, I was standing in front of Alan. He collapsed to the ground. Don't kill me. I'm a noble. I have money. My claws moved with indifference, and Alan died instantly. I flicked my tongue and caught a drop of the mage's boiling blood. Good flavor. His magic power was very pure. Then I turned around and looked at the survivor. I turned and faced the last person remaining, the gold-level berserker, Raymond. At that moment, Raymond no longer showed his previous fury. His gaze had become unnaturally calm. Raymond stared at me, his voice sounding raspy. Deep within the dungeon, he spoke. Why does a monster like you even exist? You aren't a magic beast. Your fighting style is like that of an assassin. I didn't answer. I simply shook the blood off my claws and stood my ground. My forelimbs tensed. I flexed slightly, dropping into an attack stance. Raymond took a deep breath. His aura began to grow without limit. This was the fury of a gold-level berserker. Raymond roared, becoming one with his sword. He turned into a golden meteor and lunged at me with unstoppable momentum. It was the strongest strike of his life, and his last. Faced with a blow capable of splitting a hill, I didn't dodge or block. I met it head-on with my bone armor. My body glowed with red light again, but this time it wasn't heat, it was extreme cold. Catalyzed inversion of heat and cold. My claws were instantly covered in a layer of ghostly blue ice. It was the poison, the supreme essence of the frost pond bone serpent. Just as that great sword, charged with a burning battle aura, was about to reach me, my claw struck with precision on the side of the blade. An incredibly sharp sound rang out, and that enormous sword shattered. The crystal blade turned into shards instantly. Raymond's eyes widened in shock as my claw pierced through his heart. As I pulled back, Raymond's body fell stiffly to the ground. The battle is over. The team of 5 was annihilated, but I didn't rush to devour them. I lowered my head and looked at my right claw, which was trembling slightly from that last blow. Though it was impressive, the impact of receiving a gold-level warrior's attack tore my palm open. It turns out humans aren't so insignificant after all. Afterward, I searched the pockets of the corpses. I found a few red recovery potions, several magic scrolls, and a bag of gold coins. Finally, my gaze settled on the mage, Alan. I looked at the ring on his hand, a spatial ring. Exactly what I wanted most. These objects usually carry a spiritual mark. If you try to break it by force, the internal space will collapse and everything will be destroyed. I stared at the ring for a moment. Then, suddenly, I did something unexpected. I opened my mouth and swallowed the ring. I closed my eyes and mobilized my mental power. The Zulon sees the day and names the night. By nature, it is the master of spiritual power. Even though I am still in my infancy, I have realized that spiritual power is my greatest strength. Crushing the residual spiritual mark of a dead human mage is child's play. The ring's barrier was destroyed by force. I spat out the ring, and, with a single thought, a pile of junk tumbled onto the ground. There was also a sheepskin scroll. Using the tip of my claw, I unrolled it. It was a map. A complete and extremely detailed map of the dungeon. Right now, I am on level 45, the Abyss of Despair. Going up, level 40 is the Wasteland of Bones. Level 30, the Shadow Forest. Level 20, the Goblin Labyrinth. Level 10, the Proving Grounds. And the first level, the Gate of the Abyss, the human's line of defense. Besides the map, I also found an edition of a magazine, The Weekly Adventurer. On the cover was a massive magical photograph. It showed the shimmering celestial palace of the true dragon. The headline, written in a striking common tongue, read, Sacred Land of Dragons. Arthur, second son of the Dragon Emperor, demonstrates divine talent and is named Young Patriarch. In the photo, the young golden dragon coiled proudly around a pillar, receiving homage from all races. The scales on his body shone intensely, and his gaze was incredibly arrogant. And in a corner of the article, there was a small line of text that went unnoticed. Rumor has it that the Dragon Emperor had twins this time, but the other egg, a dead one, was discarded to ensure the purity of the young patriarch's lineage. As I read those words, my gaze instantly turned fierce. Very well. Arthur, the young patriarch, huh? Since they wanted me to be a dead egg so badly, then I will return for all of you, as death itself. I took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the fury in my heart. My current power is far from enough. I need to get stronger. I look at the map again. The marker for level 40, the Wasteland of Bones. Next to it, a red skull was drawn. Beside it, a small note read, Undead Plague Outbreak Zone. Entry forbidden to the living. Presence of a high-level necromantic creature suspected. A cruel smile spread across my lips. For someone like me, who possesses the dragon fire of the ancestor, necromantic creatures are the best fuel for the soul. Besides, the undead usually collect large quantities of bones and magic crystals. It is the best place to level up. Objective confirmed. I put the map away and tucked it into my spatial ring. Then, like a necklace, I placed the ring on one of my dragon horns. Goodbye, Abyss. Next stop, the Wasteland of Bones. Following the ancient elevator passage marked on the map, I lunged toward the upper floors. When I set foot on level 40, even I, with my memories inherited from a true dragon, I felt extreme physical discomfort. There is no earth here, no rocks. Under my feet, I stepped only on bone dust of a deathly white. As far as the eye could see, a desert of stone stretched out, a vast, white wall of death. There was no wind, but ashes floated in the air like snowflakes. The map indicated that the entrance to level 30 was right at the end of this sea of bones, in the ruins of a fortress called the Wailing Wall. Suddenly, the sea of bone dust beneath my feet began to tremble violently. The ground collapsed in an instant, forming a massive vortex of quicksand. Immediately after, countless fissures in the earth tore open. Skeletal arms emerged from the dust, trying to grab me. Frantically, these bone hands didn't move randomly. They joined together, forming, in an instant, a massive white net, trying to drag me into the bottomless depths. I let out a cold snort, and with explosive force, the muscles in my legs swelled. My massive claw, covered in lava bone armor, slammed the ground. War Stomp, a red shockwave. It exploded from the point of impact, instantly repelling the tide of bone dust within 50 meters. Those arms, made of dry bone, they shattered from the high temperature and vibration, turning to powder. However, the attack was not over. Just as the bone dust filled the air, the moon in the sky suddenly flickered, accompanied by a deafening screech. Surprisingly, all that bone dust in the air did not fall back down. Instead, it stopped in the air in a strange way and condensed. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of monstrous bone birds appeared. Then, the flock of monstrous birds acted like bombers. They dove at me from all directions with a piercing whistle as they cut through the air. I raised my right claw and crushed the lead bird with a single blow. Suddenly, a voice, cold and hoarse, it echoed, "It's useless. As long as the soul is not destroyed, the bones are infinite." I looked up sharply. Behind the flock of bone birds, on a floating throne made entirely of stacked skulls, sat a humanoid creature wrapped in a black, tattered robe. In its hand, it held a staff embedded with a massive green gem. The Lord of the Undead, the Lich. He let out a chilling laugh. "At first, I thought you were just a simple, inferior dragon, but I didn't expect a mutant fire-type hatchling. True dragon cub, your skeleton will be the most perfect piece in my collection." He waved his staff at the bone bird fragments I destroyed. Incredibly, they joined again in midair. They became even sharper, more ferocious. I narrowed my eyes. No wonder this place is known as the city's main zone, but it's not forbidden for the living. For ordinary magical beasts, who only know how to bite and fight hand-to-hand. An enemy like this is an invincible nightmare. But I laughed. "Did you say soul?" I ignored the flock of bone birds lunging at me. I even lowered my guard. I let those sharp bone blades scrape against my armor. My scales sent sparks flying. I opened my mouth slowly. From the depths of my throat, no red magma or common earth fire erupted. In its place, a sacred light glowed. It was the fire of time, the essence of the Dragon King, the absolute nemesis of all spirits and lost souls. Go ahead, taste the flavor of a grilled soul. The Lich instantly let out a scream of agony. What is this fire? His magic shield, his greatest pride, dissolved instantly before the golden light. That dominant force was violently ripping the soul from his skeleton. The bone birds attacking me also turned back into a pile of silent, dry bones. I lunged forward, and that massive soul, equal to a 5th-level human mage, was devoured in a single bite. A sensation I had never felt before washed over me. It wasn't like eating. Flesh and blood only leave you full and warm. This time, it was a spiritual storm, a rush of fresh air that surged through my head. In that moment, I felt as if my brain were being torn apart and rebuilt. Centuries of necromancy knowledge, energy manipulation techniques, and deep map secrets became fragmented memories forced into my mind. Most importantly, I gained a new power, undead servitude. I turned to those with me. I fixed my gaze on a massive mammoth skeleton at my feet. I commanded it in a low voice, "Rise." And that giant skeleton, which had slept for countless years, actually began to move, trembling. 2 faint golden ghost fires ignited within its eye sockets. It was the fire I had bestowed upon it. Though it's a bit weak, it's not bad for use as bait and for scouting. I nodded with satisfaction. Then, I raised my head and looked toward the ruined fortress at the end of the wasteland. The entrance to the 30th floor, once full of unknowns, now held no secrets. Human slavers are camped there. I completely hid my presence, because 500 meters away in a clearing, I heard human voices. It wasn't the bustle of ordinary adventurers, but the dry, disciplined orders of trained men, accompanied by the sound of machinery. I climbed to the top of a giant 100-meter-tall tree to observe from above. What I saw made my pupils suddenly contract. It was a provisional camp. In the center of the site stood a massive adamantine cage, engraved with golden runes. Dozens of knights in silver armor patrolled around the cage. The Holy Hand Dragon Slayer Mercenary Guild. This was one of the most infamous and, at the same time, most powerful hunting organizations in the human world. They don't kill common magical beasts. They specialize in hunting dragon subspecies. It's even rumored they once cornered and killed a true pureblood dragon. Inside that massive cage was a creature, a jade topographic dragon. It was only about 5 or 6 meters long. Its entire body was covered in green scales. They were as bright as jade. It was a very beautiful creature, but right now, it was suffering inhuman torture. A middle-aged man in a white priest's robe stood in front of the cage. In his hand, he held a staff that emitted a soft light. A compassionate smile played on his face as he gently touched the dragon's abdomen with his staff. That soft white light wasn't for healing, it was for corroding. It was high-concentration holy light, specifically designed to torture dark attribute beings or magical beasts. It acted like strong acid poured onto skin. The softest scales on the dragon's belly blackened instantly. The topographic dragon convulsed in agony. Very good, keep the pain at that level. The priest nodded with satisfaction and turned toward an assistant holding a crystal flask. Fear and pain maximized the activity of dragon blood. The quality right now is excellent. Collect it quickly. The assistant immediately took a tube and inserted it into the dragon's fresh, ulcerated wound. Deep red blood flowed through the tube until it filled the crystal flask. On the other side of the camp sat a pile of trophies, torn dragon hides, broken dragon eggs, and several dismembered carcasses of dragon subspecies that some men, who looked like cooks, were throwing into a pot. Tonight we have dragon meat soup. This trip was worth it. This jade dragon is a variant. If we take it to the capital, it will sell for at least 5 million gold coins. I heard she has eggs in her womb too. It's a 2-for-1 deal, huh? From the treetop, I watched everything in silence. That dragon's gaze reminded me of my dragon mother. That helplessness, the look of one fighting desperately to protect the young in her womb. The look in that dragon's eyes reminded me of my dragon mother. That gaze of someone fighting desperately to protect the offspring in her womb. That look of someone fighting desperately to protect the young in her womb. They reacted incredibly fast. They drew their swords instantly and surrounded me. Dozens of them. Their combat auras locked onto me. Unfazed, I opened the cage. The jade topographic dragon looked at me in terror, speechless. I turned around, standing in front of it, facing those humans paralyzed with fear. I told them, watch closely. This is how I sent this scum to meet their maker. 1 minute after the massacre, the 32 elite members of the Holy Hand Dragon Slayer mercenary group had been turned into 32 desiccated corpses. I stood before that massive adamantine cage. Inside, the jade geodragon I had rescued lay on the floor. It stared at the blood-soaked monster before it, sensing my terrifying dragon aura. Its survival instinct was a complete mess. I told it to submit, but deep in its eyes, a trace of maternal caution still lingered. It was protecting its bulging belly. I looked at her and asked, "Are you afraid?" I extended a finger. At the tip, a single drop of golden red essential blood condensed. This wasn't ordinary blood. It contained a trace of the original essence of the primal dragon. Open your mouth, I ordered. The geo-dragon didn't dare disobey, and, trembling, opened its jaws. That golden drop flew into its mouth. The festering wound on the geodragon's belly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. From its dull green scales, a dazzling emerald glow erupted. Its size increased explosively in an instant. Its aura broke straight through the 2nd level and entered the ranks of 3rd-level magical beasts. And most importantly, the egg in her womb, upon contact with the golden blood, instantly emitted a powerful heartbeat. It was a future subdragon I've already cleared from. Floor 30 to 50. I turned around, never looking back at her. That is your territory. Take your offspring and go there. As long as I am alive. The magical beasts below won't dare cause trouble. I soon reached the 20th floor. The labyrinth of the Geo Whales. It's a giant underground city made of countless abandoned gears. The granite peeled away from the earth. Steam pipes and traps. Alert. High energy reaction approaching. Hey. Shrill robotic voice echoed throughout the labyrinth. Tens of thousands of mutant Geo Whales, piloting crude steam mechs, stared in horror at their radar screens. At that red dot, which had turned deep purple, that point of light moved too fast. It was like red lightning ignoring all the labyrinth walls, piercing through everything. The Geo Whale King screamed, "Open fire! Quick, open fire!" The Geo Whale King shouted. Countless rusted projectiles, poison gas tanks, and even suicide drones from the Geo Whales rained down on that red shadow. From the shadow, a low growl was heard, followed by a column of golden red fire that pierced heaven and earth. In an instant, it melted a lava tunnel 100 meters wide leading directly to the city center. The king stood helpless, without even slowing down. Like a meteorite going against the current, I smashed through every obstacle. The 10th floor is the testing ground. This is a containment zone established by the human nations to train young knights. Originally, today was the graduation test day for the Holy Empire's Royal Knight Academy. Hundreds of them, dressed in shining silver armor, young nobles, mounted on imposing steeds, and guided by their tutor, were hunting a group of low-ranking skeletons. "Look, what is that?" a young female knight suddenly exclaimed, pointing toward the abyss. Everyone looked up, only to see that the entrance to the abyss, previously pitch black, now reflected a sinister dark red glow. A suffocating heat wave, accompanied by the trembling of the earth, surged violently from the depths. "Retreat!" The tutor's face twisted in terror as he waved the flag desperately. Too late. The earth cracked. I leaped from the bowels of the underground, and the instant I landed, the immense shockwave threw every person and horse within a 100-meter radius into the air. But I didn't attack them. With a cold gaze, I scanned this so-called elite of humanity. Too weak, I thought, shaking my head. So this is the last stop before the surface? I looked up. About 1,000 meters above me, a gigantic magic formation floated, emitting a blue light. The seal of the abyss, the gate of size. It was created by humans in alliance with the dragons to prevent the magical beasts of the underground from emerging to the surface. An absolute defense. They say that even a 6th level Lord-class magical beast would be instantly disintegrated if it collided with it. In the center of that magic formation hung an enormous dragon fang. It was the fang of a true dragon. As the core of the seal, it emitted a vast power that oppressed the countless creatures below. Seeing that fang, I smiled. "Arthur, I recognize that aura. It's the fang of the current Dragon Emperor. Arthur, did you intend to lock me down here until I rotted?" The bone wings on my back flapped with fury, slowly lifting my body into the air. As I ascended, the air around me began to distort. The nights on the ground watched in shock. "If you gave me life, why did you discard me? And if you discarded me, why didn't you finish me off once and for all?" My speed exploded to its limit in an instant. I didn't use any technique. I simply used my own head to crash against that Dragon Emperor's fang in the sky. "Open up for me. I have returned. Prepare your neck and wait."